right, everybody. We're about to get started. So this is Mr. Andrew Jones. He is the owner of the Chick-Fil-A in Troy, and he's just going to speak to you guys a little bit about his experience, and he's going to pass.
Yeah. So I was mentioning this is not what I do. Speaking to people is not really on my my list of skills. But yeah, I mean, I'm so glad to be here with you guys. I think kind of the thing Allison asked me to start with is just kind of my journey of what it has looked like for me with Chick-fil-A. I also, anytime I come somewhere, I always bring either stuff to give away or food to give away, because that way people leave and they're like, hey, that was useful. So I'm going to ask a few trivia questions and then kind of share a little bit of my philosophy on really hospitality, but as you'll see, it has a lot more to do with leadership than it does hospitality. And then I'd love, just open up the questions, anything you guys want to ask about Chick-fil-A or anything I might have any sort of insight into, feel free. So just kind of background on me, I grew up in Marietta, Georgia, just on the west side of Atlanta, and pretty much my whole life, my plan was I wanted to be an engineer. That's what people in my family did, and that was kind of the plan. So if you're in Atlanta, Georgia Tech is the place to go if you want to be an engineer. And so when I was in high school, that's all I ever thought I was going to do, was just go to Georgia Tech, be an engineer, that's it. Senior year of high school, I visited Georgia Tech. I had been there many times to watch football games, basketball games, and I was like, this is the greatest place ever. I took the official college visit, and it was miserable. If you've ever been to Georgia Tech, it is downtown Atlanta. There's not a tree on the campus. And as I kind of looked around, I was like, nobody looks like they're having any fun. Like, everyone just looks really, really smart. And they look like they're studying a lot, and this doesn't look fun to me. So I had a good friend in high school that was going to visit Berry College, which is in northwest Georgia, kind of in the foothills of the Appalachians. And I was like, yeah, I'll go. I'll pretend like I'm interested so I get an excused absence. So I went and visited Berry College, had no interest in going there, but while I was there, I kind of got a sales pitch from an organization on campus called the WinShape program, which I had never heard of, didn't know anything about what it was, and they kind of talked about, basically they give you a partial scholarship to go to Berry College, and you have to be in their program for 4 years, and it's in addition to whatever your major is, and it's kind of focused on leadership, discipleship, servant, kind of go around serving others. Well, it is funded by Chick-fil-A. Once again, didn't know that. Never worked at Chick-fil-A in high school. All I knew was Chick-fil-A is where I go to get nuggets. So I kind of talked to my parents, and they were like, well, it's your choice. You go wherever you want to go. And so kind of what I said was, I'm going to apply for this WinShape program, and if I get accepted, I'm going to go to Berry. And so I applied, ended up getting accepted, never looked back. So I ended up getting a marketing degree instead of an engineering degree. Had no idea what I was going to do with that. And my senior year of college, which feels like not that long ago, but I realized when I was talking to Sarah a second ago, it was 12 years ago. So my senior year of college, my now wife, I was about to propose to her, and I kind of said, well, if I don't have a plan for some sort of financial income in the future, this is probably going to be challenging. So I began the job hunt, which if you guys have not done that, that's super fun when you're about to graduate and you're like, hey, I got to find a way to make money. So I graduated from college in 2008, and there were literally no companies on the face of the earth hiring because it was the worst possible time to be looking for a job. So I was on, do they sell Monster.com? Is that still a thing? Okay, so back when I was graduating, you would go on these job boards and see who was hiring. No one was hiring. So I, being involved with WinShape, I kind of had, I knew about Chick-fil-A, and now my sister-in-law, she wasn't my sister-in-law at the time, she worked for Chick-fil-A's corporate office, and she was like, you need to look into Chick-fil-A, look into Chick-fil-A. And in my mind, I was like, well, I've been exposed to the nonprofit side, the portion of Chick-fil-A that, is kind of the give back side. But I have no desire to be involved in the restaurant industry. I know nothing about the restaurant industry. That's not what I'm wired for. I don't want to do that. And then I got more and more desperate, and she kept pushing and pushing. So I actually applied for a marketing internship at the Chick-fil-A corporate office. And the way Chick-fil-A does any sort of onboarding is, it is a process. So for a marketing unpaid internship, I had three 3-hour interviews. The first one, got to the interview and they said, have you ever thought about being an owner-operator of a restaurant? I was like, I don't know what that means. No. Came back for the second interview and we had been talking for 20 minutes and the person said, have you ever thought about being an owner-operator of one of our restaurants? It's like, yeah, no, not at all. In my mind, what they were talking to me about was, if you picture, you go into the restaurant, there's the guy, and he's got like the short sleeve shirt and the tie, and he just looks like he's always mad and miserable. Like in my mind, I was like, no, I don't want to do that. That sounds awful. So they called me back and said, hey, we're not interested in pursuing you for the unpaid internship. But we would really encourage you to look into being an owner-operator. So in my mind, the way this all played out was, man, they are desperate for people to take this job. Like there is nobody who wants to do this. They won't even give me an internship, but they want me to, look into this. So I kind of said, nope, Chick-fil-A, I tried that, let's go look elsewhere. And just kind of in passing in a conversation with my sister-in-law, I mentioned that was said in the interview, and she was like, you probably need to look into that. That's not really something they say to people. So the more and more desperate I got, I kind of broke and I was like, all right, I'll make a phone call. So I called my contact at Chick-fil-A's corporate office and basically said, all right, convince me why I should want to do this. I had no idea that in 2008, when I made that phone call, they had about 30,000 applicants to do what I was calling, saying, convince me why I should want to do this. So I probably came off as the most arrogant person in the world, but really I was just super ignorant. So she kind of chuckled and she was like, yeah, so if I were you, this is why I would be interested. And I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. And she was like, yeah, that's not really how this works at all. So it all kind of, fast forward, what happened was they said, we want to give you a shot, but you have zero business experience, you have zero restaurant experience. So they put me in a restaurant in Atlanta with a kind of a mentor, owner-operator, and they said, for 2 years we want you to work with this guy, and like you're not going to hear from us for 2 years. Like in 2 years after you've done that, if you still want to do this, come talk to us. So kind of what I learned was Chick-fil-A in that 2 years, I literally started for the first 2 weeks, I was filleting chicken, I was squeezing lemons. I came home, I smelled like fried chicken. And I realized as I was watching the guy who was my mentor, it's not really about a restaurant at all. It's about people. And as I kind of watched him and what he did, it was like, man, I do want to do what he does. I don't want to do what I'm doing right now. I don't want to squeeze lemons for the rest of my life, but I do want to do what he does. And so I kind of fell in love with the role of being an owner-operator of Chick-fil-A more than I fell in love with Chick-fil-A. So for 2 years, I worked for him, got an opportunity to temporarily run a restaurant in Cheyenne, Wyoming. It was the only Chick-fil-A in the state of Wyoming at the time, and it was in a traditional mall. And I walked in and they had no leadership, they had nothing, and I walked in on Black Friday, and it's the only mall basically in a 200-mile radius, and so we just got absolutely destroyed because the mall's dead most of the year, but on Black Friday it was crazy. So I did that for a year and a half running temporary restaurants. So I went from Cheyenne to Sacramento to Phoenix, and finally got an opportunity to have my own restaurant in Colorado Springs, and it was in a traditional mall. So I did that for a year and a half, and then Chick-fil-A approached me and said, hey, we're actually going to open a brand new restaurant in Denver if you are interested. So in 2013, I opened a brand new restaurant in Denver, kind of right in the heart of a community called Cherry Hills, which is the highest income zip code in the state of Colorado. And staffing the restaurant was an absolute nightmare. I could not find anyone to work, and it was really, really hard because our sales were growing at a pace that I was literally going home saying, please stop growing because I cannot staff the restaurant. So it was a really hard 3 years being there, and so at that time my wife and I said, all right, let's try to get back to the Southeast. So the opportunity here in Troy came available. And in 2016, we moved back here, and actually the restaurant I left at the time was doing $1 million in sales more in volume than the store I came to here. And overnight, I was happier than I'd ever been when I got here. So this is kind of where we are. We have 4 kids, and as far as we know, this is it. We don't really want to go anywhere else. And I would say 95% of my staff are Troy students, which is a wonderful thing because I can staff my restaurant with people who have kind of some motivation, some drive. And yeah, it's just been a wonderful thing. So that's kind of my journey to the Chick-Fil-A timeline, so to speak. I do have, kind of as we talk a little bit about my philosophy on hospitality, leadership, that type of thing, I got a couple of trivia questions so that I can give some stuff away. This 2019, we opened our first official restaurant outside of the U.S. It was in Toronto, and we also opened 2 licensees, which licensees are basically like what's here on campus. So it's not a full-fledged Chick-fil-A restaurant that has an owner-operator. It's run by a third-party organization. So on campus, it's Sodexo. So we opened 2 of those in the UK, and we opened the actual restaurant in Toronto. Does anybody know the first country outside of the US that we actually had a Chick-fil-A restaurant? It was in the mid-90s. It's no longer there. It's the only Chick-fil-A's that we've ever closed because of poor sales performance. Make a guess. You might get a guess on the continent. No. It's actually South Africa. So we opened 3 restaurants in South Africa in the mid-90s, and just the supply chain, everything was an absolute nightmare. And so we ended up closing them because we found that the people down there preferred chicken on the bone, and we were serving chicken out of the bone, and they were not fans. All right. Does anybody know quick service restaurants? What is the largest quick service restaurant brand in the world? Meaning number of units.
Subway.
That's right. I'm not going to give you this because you already got it.
Okay.
They've got 43,000 units worldwide. Second is McDonald's with 37,000. Anybody have any idea how many we have, Chick-fil-A has worldwide? How many? Way lower. Way lower. 2,500. Yep, so we only have 2,500 worldwide, and by worldwide I mean the U.S. and one in Toronto. You didn't get it right. Average sales volume for units. Does anybody have any idea? So right behind us, we are number 1, is Whataburger. Does anybody know average sales volume for Whataburger? Good to guess. Annual sales volume. $2.9 million. So your average Whataburger is doing about $2.9 million a year, and then right behind them is In-N-Out at 2.8, and then McDonald's at 2.7. So we are currently at about 6.6 million. And the thing that's so crazy about that is we're only open 6 days a week, whereas all those other places are open 7. So we're essentially losing 52 days a year and still doing over double what they do. Average transactions per day. Anybody can get this one? You get your super cool Chick-fil-A Troy. Closest guess. So average transactions per day at a Chick-fil-A restaurant.
1,200.
How many?
1,200.
1,200, okay. 2 more guesses and the closest one gets it.
800.
800?
2,000.
All right, 2,000 is the closest. It's 1,800. I'll get to you in a second. So the average Chick-fil-A is doing 1,800 transactions a day. So that's not 1,800 guests, that's 1,800 tickets. So if a family of 4 comes in, that's 1 ticket. And the last little one I'll throw out, last year we as a chain purchased 518 million pounds of chicken. So we are hands down the greatest company consumer of chicken. And the cool thing about that is most of our chicken, especially in the Southeast, comes from Dothan Enterprise, from Wayne Farms. All right, so I know that hospitality is a lot of kind of what you guys are studying, or at least in some form or fashion. So I mean, what does that mean? Like, what is hospitality to you guys?
I was gonna say, y'all know what hospitality is, so you better speak up on that one.
mostly, in my opinion.
Okay?
I used to think it was just working with people, pleasing people, making them happy, but now it's, I guess a technical definition to me would be offering a service to someone.
Okay.
Help me.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
fair. Yeah.
Creating interpersonal relationships with people through business.
Okay. I mean, I've never looked it up. I don't know. My degree was in marketing. I was genuinely curious what you guys thought was.
I would say anything for, taking in gas at your house, making it your home.
Yeah. I mean, so yes, I mean, I hope that if you guys ever eat at Chick-Fil-A, like there's a component of that you feel. I think for me, what I have kind of realized is with hospitality, especially in our restaurant, it's not about how hospitable I am. It's the hospitality of our culture. I can be the most hospitable person in the world, but if my team is not that way because that's kind of our culture, then it doesn't matter, because if the people in this room have been to Chick-fil-A 100 times in the last month, I would guess that not one of you have interacted with me. And so me being hospitable is kind of irrelevant in terms of the guest experience. So I think for me, that's where the leadership component comes in. So for us, in order for us to have that culture of hospitality, we've got to have strong leadership. And so for me, that kind of comes back to what's your why? Like, why do you want to be hospitable? Why is treating your guests well important? So for us at Chick-fil-A, we've kind of got two driving forces. We've got our corporate purpose. So this kind of came along in the mid-'80s. And at the time, there were literally no Chick-fil-A's like you have seen them, like the one out on 231. The only Chick-fil-A's that existed were in traditional shopping malls. And honestly, it was not going well for the Chick-fil-A brand. It was the first and only year that as a chain we had a negative sales increase. Kind of in the mid-'80s, there was a little bit of a financial downturn in the U.S. and kind of the leaders of Chick-fil-A went off and they kind of came up with this corporate purpose, and it's kind of what has driven us from here on out. And it's to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that's been entrusted to us and have a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. So that was kind of our corporate purpose, and then kind of in the mid-2000s we came up with our vision, and our vision was to be remarkable. And the idea was we wanted to do things and treat people in such a way that they actually were inspired to remark. So the remarkable was kind of italicized. This when social media was kind of getting big, and the idea was we want to treat our guests in such a way that they're kind of compelled to remark to others, and essentially we're going to get our best marketing from our guests instead of commercials or whatever it is. But we've since changed that. So we kind of thought be remarkable was good, but then last year we took on a much larger endeavor. And so currently our mission is to be the world's most caring brand, which is a lot to take in considering we are currently only in 2 countries. So we've got a lot of work to do, but the idea is that's what's going to drive us for the rest of, hopefully the rest of my career with Chick-fil-A, is to be the world's most caring brand. And so in both of those things, if you think about our corporate purpose, glorify God by being faithful steward, having a positive influence, and then the world's most caring brand, what is kind of interesting that's not in either one of those considering what we do? Don't say anything about chicken, don't say anything about food. It's literally about how we treat other people. And so I think that for me, that's ultimately what drew me to Chick-fil-A. I think that is, if you want to call it the secret, that's the secret to our success. I personally, I'm not passionate about chicken. I'm not passionate about the restaurant industry. But I love watching young people kind of develop and grow and go from, I can't figure out how this register works to all of a sudden they're actually leading a multi-million-dollar business. And so for me, that's kind of my why. That's what gets me up out of bed in the morning is I want to see those developments happen. And so I think that that's what's kind of been the secret for us so far. When I kind of think about new team members and we talk through that, I don't do this much anymore, but I used to do a lot of final interviews for our team members. And one of the questions I would always ask them was, I'm assuming you eat with us. Describe a great experience with Chick-fil-A. And I did that for kind of two reasons. And what they would always say would be, you guys smile, you're warm, it feels like a family, you get my order right. Never said anything about like, they might say something about Chick-Fil-A sauce, but they would never be like, oh, I come just because the food's awesome. It was always about the environment. And I would kind of, point that out to them for two reasons. The first thing is, I would say, okay, so there's your roadmap for how to continue our culture. Everything you just described about smiling, being warm, the things that made you feel important or made you enjoy this experience is what you have to do now. The second thing is, nothing you just described requires any sort of talent. And I think that's kind of the big thing for hospitality. In my experience, it takes zero talent. It literally just takes effort. And so, when I talk to my team or when our leaders talk to our team, we're talking about things that you don't have to be special to do. When you think about being the world's most caring brand, it does not take talent to care for people. It just takes effort and intentionality. And so that's kind of one of the things we really focus on when we're hiring new people. And then the other thing I'll say about, just that whole guest experience in hospitality, when I was in high school, I played basketball in high school and a little bit in college, and my high school coach, there was one thing he would say to us 300 times a practice, and it was, the little foxes spoil the vine. And he was always talking about, the little details, it's the little details. And I think for us, we don't get too caught up on, how much sales do we do in the year? We focus on getting the order right, smiling when people walk in. And so just focusing on those little things, I think is huge when you think about hospitality, because those are the things that people remember. I've got lots of little notes here of things that I'm more than happy to share, but I'd love to hear any questions y'all have, if any, about Chick-fil-A, or I'm by no means an expert, but I do have my experience.
What was your biggest challenge with the whole journey?
With which part?
The whole journey.
I think for me the biggest challenge at first was I was married and I knew that what I was doing I loved, but I wasn't really sure financially if it was really going to support a family. And so I think patience, but also, it's the unknown. You just don't know, and I think that's always a challenge. But I think when I thought about it, I was like, but I'm excited when I get out of bed. I'm excited to go kind of get involved in people's lives. Right now I have a team member that he pretty much has no contact with his family. He lives in Troy. He doesn't go to school here. He lives in Troy because he needed to get away from his family, which was a tough situation. I have taken him to get his wisdom teeth taken out, and for the following 4 nights he stayed at my house because the poor guy couldn't eat anything but soup. I've gone with him to buy his first car because he had no idea what buying a car looked like, or that you needed insurance to have a car. And things like that, I saw that my operator got to do those types of things, and I kind of said that's what I want to do. So for me, it was knowing that was on down the road. It kind of made even though it was a challenge, it made it worth it. It kind of made me keep going. Yeah. What else? I gotta have questions, otherwise I'm just gonna feel like a teacher up here, just talking about. Yeah.
What is your biggest everyday struggle with customer service? So when you're dealing with customers.
Yeah, Sarah, what are your thoughts? Biggest challenge with dealing with people? No, if you have a thought.
Her name's Karen.
I think the reality is 90% of people are really great. But there are 10% that you kind of just want to look at and go what are you talking about? What are you thinking? And so kind of keeping your cool, because I think what I've found is the way you handle the really tough guests, it actually speaks more to your team and the surrounding guests that are watching about caring for them than it does to that one person who probably has already tuned you out. And so I think for me, it's there's an audience. And so the way I handle the really tough guests is really doing more for my team than it is that person. Does that help at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
When do you think that the shift between doing
like pursuing it because you were desperate for a position to pursuing it because you actually enjoyed it. When do you think that shift, like what do you think kind of caused that shift in motivation?
So, I mean, I don't know, like I think there's a lot of stuff going around recently about, go do what you're passionate about, and that's all that matters. And I think, like, that's tough. Like, I mean, I think it's important to do things you're passionate about, but I think if you just look at your career and say, I'm only gonna do things I'm passionate about, then, we're gonna have a lot of people trying to be professional golfers or professional basketball players or, so I think the shift for me was, hey, I've got to have a job. Like, I mean, I can't live with my parents forever. But finding something where I truly feel like I can be a part of making people's lives better. And I mean, the reality is, like, if you're looking at it just strictly financially, you're never going to make enough money. Like, like you always want more. And so for me, it was finding something that I knew I could love doing. And the cool thing about my opportunity with Chick-Fil-A is I knew, hey, I can kind of influence things. Meaning, yes, I'm under the umbrella of Chick-Fil-A, but I get to pull the levers, and like if I don't like how that metric looks, I get to go try something and do it different. And I think I'm not really a control freak, but I like to be able to influence things. And I felt like if I was sitting in a cubicle or something like that, I just would not survive. I'd struggle. So yes, I mean, now every day looks kind of different. So I don't really know that it was a shift. It was more just like, hey, this is what it's got to be. Yeah, anything else?
What advice would you give someone who wanted to be an owner-operator, business and everything? How would you tell them what to do?
Go work at Chick-fil-A. No, I mean, I think that what's cool about Chick-fil-A right now is, I mean, as of 2011, we became a totally debt-free company. And so we totally operate out of cash flow. And so we went from building 15 restaurants a year, which is why our numbers are so much lower than all the others, to now we're sometimes building 60, 70, 80 restaurants a year. And I think that if, obviously getting involved with Chick-fil-A, which is so crazy to say because I know when I was in college and people would come, I was like, get involved. For us being in Georgia, we had people all the time come tell us, get involved with Waffle House. And I was like, wait, what? And so like when people talk about get involved with Chick-fil-A, like it seems so like counterintuitive to someone who's sitting at a university. But I mean, I think truly like go work at a Chick-fil-A and see like, is it really something you can be passionate about? Because there are days where it's miserable. But yeah, I mean, Chick-fil-A is growing so much right now. I mean, when I moved to Troy, I moved from Denver to Troy, and the way that it works is when a store becomes available, so whether it's a new build or in this case, the guy who was here moved to Dothan, people that are already owner-operators can apply. When I moved here, there were 11 applicants for the store in Troy. When I left Denver, which is a higher volume store, there were 0. So the more you're willing to go out west, the more opportunities there are because everyone who's kind of, likes the Chick-fil-A culture is starting in Atlanta. They're from the Southeast. They kind of know Chick-fil-A because geographically that's where they're from. So I mean, right now we have 3 stores being built in Hawaii, and we had 2 applicants for 3 stores. So I mean, like being willing to go somewhere helps. We opened stores in Seattle and had to delay the opening because nobody wanted to run them. And what's crazy is now those stores are doing $12, $13 million in sales a year. So yeah, be willing to move. You're gonna go to Hawaii and open Chick-fil-A. What else?
Does Popeye's new chicken sandwich hurt y'all financially at all?
That's a good question, actually. And I mean, no. Which, do any of you guys know what Barstool Sports is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you ever seen their review of it?
Where they blind taste test.
They blind taste test it, and he tastes the Chick-fil-A one, and he goes, "That's the best." And he's like, "Wait, they started something with them? That was stupid." No, so I mean, I think the reality is there's always going to be somebody trying to make a better chicken sandwich. Popeyes tried it, and I mean, depending on who you ask, some people say it's better. McDonald's actually came out last year, and essentially they said, with our resources, there's zero reason that we can't have a better chicken sandwich than Chick-fil-A. And I mean, so I mean, I would not be surprised if 2 years from now, people were like, Chick-fil-A is, it's the fourth best sandwich. I don't think it's gonna hurt our sales though. Because we're not built, like that's not what we're about. We're not trying to make the best chicken sandwich. Somebody might go discover this spice off the coast of wherever and it makes chicken taste a million times better. We're not gonna change our recipe. Because I think for us, we can do uniquely what they can't. And that's deliver service because we're more invested in our people. Now, if Popeyes ever came up with a way to train their people and create a culture of excellence with that sandwich, yeah, that could be a problem. But if you've been to Popeyes recently, they don't care. Like, I mean that lovingly. Like, I have nothing against Popeyes, but people always ask, like, what's your biggest competition? And I'm like, honestly, another Chick-fil-A is my biggest competition. And it's not because I think we're better than everybody else. It's that they don't try to do the things well that we try to do well. They try to do other things well. And it's just so interesting to watch all the money that these other companies will pour into product development and marketing, and you walk in the restaurant and it's like a disaster, It's like, man, if y'all would just take half of that money or 90% of that money and invest it in your people, you'd probably be onto something. Yeah.
Do you feel that working as a team actually like chocolate chicken and like squeeze lemons really helps you in development as a as
100%. Yeah, without a doubt. I think that for the longest time, Chick-fil-A's corporate office was basically 100% people who had grown up in the restaurant. So people had worked in high school, in college, at Chick-fil-A restaurants, and then they went and got their degree and whatever, and all of a sudden now they're accountants at the corporate office or they're in supply chain. And because our growth has gone really fast, we're starting to, and also just our corporate brand has become so strong. I mean, everybody wants to work at Chick-fil-A, like the corporate office. So I mean, it went from, if you have worked at a Chick-fil-A and you have a 4-year degree, there's a spot for you, to now we have people with, MBAs that can't get jobs at Chick-fil-A. And what's happened is we've gone from hiring people who grew up in the business and kind of understand it to people that are on paper the most qualified. And it's been the biggest challenge for our company so far is we have people who don't know what it's like to be in a restaurant telling us what it's like to be in a restaurant. And I think that we're, as a company, we're figuring that out and kind of backpedaling a little bit. And I mean, there's a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0, which I don't know if y'all have heard of it, but I think it applies big time. And it's essentially, so I mean, there was a time where, Amazon, Google, Apple, they were going out hiring on paper the best people they could find, and they realized their culture was an absolute train wreck. It's because they had people who had no interpersonal skills. They didn't know how to engage with each other, and if there's a conflict, they didn't know how to solve the conflict. And so, yeah, I would highly recommend reading Emotional Intelligence 2.0, but it's kind of the idea of that, you got to understand self-awareness and also relationship management. Yeah, and I think being able to speak the same language and know what it's like to, squeeze 12 cases of lemons in one day, where literally your hands are on fire because you got lemon juice going on all your cuticles. That's important. Yeah, and you got peanut oil all over you. And do any of you guys know Matthew Powers? He graduated last year, maybe?
He graduated in spring or summer.
Okay, so I can say this about him because he's not here. But so he applied, came in, and he was like, yeah, this will be good for my resume, all this stuff. Well, we put him in the kitchen, and his first day, he touched raw chicken and literally threw up all over the floor. He was like, I can't handle touching raw chicken. We're like, well, that's a problem. He eventually got over it somehow, but yeah, so I mean, it's just funny to me because it's yeah, you got to know, you can't be in a chicken business if you can't touch chicken. Yeah. What else? Yes,
This is a food question.
okay.
Are you guys ever gonna like make spicy tenders? Because it would be delicious.
Yeah, so there's currently, if you go to North Carolina right now, you can have them.
There's a spicy chicken sandwich.
Yeah, so there's currently a test going on that is going to, we're gonna get rid of strips and we're gonna replace them with spicy strips. And if that test goes through, there's a lot of things that will be deleted off the menu, which could be a problem. But they're gonna add some stuff. And so one of the things they would do is they would actually make a chicken mini slider that has like 2 spicy strips on it. Now, that's not, don't go like tweeting that or anything, that's not definitely happening. So like, last thing I need is like, yeah, a guy in Troy said this is happening. But they are testing that because, I mean, that's kind of one of the things people are saying is like, you need a spicy. Go to North Carolina, you know.
Well, my question was gonna be if we could have chicken minis all day.
So we tried that actually at the restaurant last year.
How did I miss this?
We did it for a month. We're like, we're gonna serve minis all day and see if it's like, you know, worth it. And from 10:30 to noon, we sold a lot. And then afternoon, it was kind of like, no point in having the ovens on to, you know. But yeah, so I don't know. All right, and I don't even know what our time frame is, but like.
I think you've got about 20 more minutes.
Oh dang, okay.
So-
Yeah.
Alright, this is a more serious question. How do you build like such good team chemistry? Like I eat a lot of fast food, I'm human, but like
I do
I
too.
don't go in the drive-thru, there's people waiting already to take my order, like,
Yeah,
and it's just such a nice flow, so I'm just wondering like how that, I guess.
yeah. So I'll give you some thoughts, but I'm also gonna make Sarah answer something about that. So, I mean, I think for me, like, it comes down to the idea of managers versus leaders. What do you think the difference between a manager and a leader is?
You're asking me?
I'm asking you.
Manager is just, someone, you know, who can delegate very well and
Yeah.
control his workers and have them to do a certain task.
Yeah.
A leader is someone who, like, I guess is more in it and will be with his group of people that he's working with and that they're a good team.
Yeah, so there's no role in my business that's a manager. Like, we don't have managers. We don't want managers. Managers check checklists and make sure X, Y, and Z gets done. We only have leaders. I mean, I know that's just a word, like you're like, okay, we can call them whatever you want to call them, but there's kind of reason behind it. You know, leaders coach, encourage, get alongside, you know, people with what's going on. I would say the 2 things I do in the restaurant, probably more than I do anything else, are wash dishes and pick up trash. Because I know that people don't like to do that. It needs to be done. But I think it's kind of creating this culture of when we talk about our hierarchy, we say, I mean, in Sarah's firm we say this, we serve down and we support up. So my job is strictly to serve. So I have kind of run under me are called executive directors. I've got 4 of them. My #1 role is to serve those 4 people. I give them kind of metrics. I'm like, I want to hit these goals. How can I serve you to help you make those happen? They do the same thing to the people that report directly to them. And then if you flip it up, everyone supports up. So if you are a shift lead, your #1 role is to support the team leader. You know, make sure that their life's easier. And so, I mean, once again, it's just kind of semantics, but that's truly how we've built our businesses. We serve down and we support up. Sarah, what would you say, I mean, if you've got positive things to say, about, like, you came in, like, what was the culture when you came in, and why is it a good thing? Why does it work? Why do you think that our team interacts with our guests differently than our competitors?
I would say that, like, the goals of the business were communicated, and, like, you kind of got me on board with it, and so, like, I want to get 130 cars through the drive-through an hour just as much as you do, you know?
Yeah.
And so because we have like the same goal and same mindset, we're all able to work together as a team to make that happen.
Yeah. So I mean, right now, so this year, one of our big goals is, so for a long time, we kept trying to push cars through drive-through, and obviously 12 to 1 is the prime time to do that, but we'd always run out of cars. So like we'd get all fired up, we're like, all right, we're gonna do 120 cars this hour, and we'd get to like 108, and there would literally not be a car. So kind of what we've got this mentality that like, all right, if we keep being more efficient, faster and faster, eventually our guests will trust us more. Actually, speaking of Popeyes, I was having a conversation with one of their managers a couple months ago, and he was talking about the new sandwich. He was like, man, we were so busy. He was like, we had like 20 cars come through the drive-through an hour. And I was like, oh my gosh, they would take my keys if I was doing 20 cars an hour during lunch. But I mean, I think it's just that pursuit of excellence. And for me, like when I talk about those 4 executive directors, the thing that I tell them is you're most important to me when I no longer need you, which is so counterintuitive to how we're built as humans. The idea is I want to hold on to this one thing that only I can do because I'm needed. You know, if I'm the only person that can order the truck, then you can't get rid of me because you gotta have a truck. But what I tell them is the time you're most valuable to me, and I'm going to keep paying you more and more and more, is when I no longer need you. Because I don't need you because you're the one that develops other people and you coach other people and you've trained 3 people underneath you to do exactly what you do, because I know that if I lose all those people, if I've got you, I can keep replicating it. So for me, it's that idea of you got to let go of I want to hold on to responsibility because it makes me important. I mean, and truthfully, like the thing that makes your job enjoyable is when you coach someone how to do something and all of a sudden they do it really well. I mean, I will pretty regularly jump in, and the position that we call where you literally put the food in the bag, we call it bagging. You know, it's really, we're genius. I'll jump in every once in a while and like try to do that, and I'll quickly realize like, man, I'm like not that good anymore. Like I used to kind of pride myself on, you know, I can do that better than anybody, and I look around and I'm like, I'm not, like they've passed me. And I mean, it doesn't hurt my feelings, like I'm glad. And so I think creating the culture comes from, I mean, empowering people. People want to work somewhere where it's like, hey, go achieve that. And if they do, it's like, all right, achieve something else. Instead of kind of like, you know, keeping them in a little box, being like, do these 3 things because that's what I said. Did that help at all?
Yeah.
Okay. What else? All right, I'm going to get my notes and look at it. Yeah.
If you could work for any company in the world, would you still work for Chick-Fil-A? Would you still be doing what you're doing right now if you could have any job?
Oh, if we're taking financial out of it, yes. No, I mean, truly, I would not do anything else. Like, there is no other job on the face of the earth that would tempt me, aside from, you know, somebody being like, hey, you can be like Jeff Bezos and make, you know, $3 billion a day just by existing. Other than that, I'd probably still like keep my Chick-fil-A. But no, I mean, I truly wouldn't. Like, it's kind of crazy because I graduated from college, started working for Chick-fil-A, and you know, believe it or not, I actually am a millennial. I'm on the very top end of them. But you know, there's these reports that say like millennials change jobs, I don't know, it's something like 12 times per career. And I was like, man, unless they fire me, like, you know, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Because I'm technically, I don't work for Chick-fil-A, I'm just an independent leader, essentially, because I'm not even really an owner, because all I own is the business name, and the business name is not even Chick-fil-A, it's just my LLC. So they can, the way our contract works is they can take my keys and take the restaurant from me at any point. Because I didn't pay for the building, I didn't pay for the equipment, that all belongs to Chick-fil-A Inc. I just came in and became a leader. So that's one of the ways that I think Chick-fil-A has been really successful. It's kind of the secret is if someone wants to open a McDonald's, basically McDonald's says, what's your net worth? Do you have, you know, I don't know what the number is now, but it used to be if you have 1.5 million in liquid assets, you can go build a McDonald's wherever you want, just pay us the franchise fee and have at it. Chick-fil-A doesn't work that way. You can't, no matter how much money you have, you can't go build a Chick-fil-A. they are the ones that build Chick-fil-A's, and then they interview people to take over. So for me to be an owner, operator of Chick-fil-A, it cost me $5,000 to own a Chick-fil-A. Way cheaper than McDonald's, like not even close. But I had to go through months of interviews because all they care about is, character and chemistry. Do you have the character we're looking for, and do you blend with our organization? I was literally a college grad with when they said $5,000, I was like, I don't know if I got that. We asked mom and dad. That's the other thing is they have people in business who, Chick-fil-A is not just a portfolio expander. It's not just like, oh yeah, I do this and this, plus I got these 12 McDonald's over there. I'm in it. If that store is not successful, I can't pay my bills. So I got a lot of skin in the game. Long answer to your question, there's nothing else I would rather do. And as far as them taking my keys from me, they spend so much time interviewing on the front end, they kind of view it as like a marriage. So their idea is, unless you really break kind of our agreement, if my performance starts to dip or whatever, they're going to send me all the help they can in terms of, whatever, hey, your profitability is struggling. We're going to send you financial consultants to help you figure that out. So it would take a lot for them to take my keys. If I ever sell stuff on Sundays, they'll come take my keys that day. So that's one of those that can't get around that one. Any other questions?
Have you ever
Thoughts?
got any negative responses about not being open on Sundays?
I don't know negative, it's more just why aren't you, But man, for me, if I didn't have a day, luckily I have got leaders in place and such that there's not really a day that I am absolutely required to be at the restaurant. But if Sunday is a day for all of my team to rest, for the building to rest, as silly as that sounds, the equipment to rest, I just think it's huge. And I think that for my team, if you've ever worked in the food service industry, apart from Chick-fil-A, it is grueling. It's late nights, it's long hours, and it never stops.
I was yeah.
And so for us to have a day where it's hey, you're never going to work on this day. Now, we might have a party or a gathering, but you're never going to have to work on this day. I think it's a huge kind of talent retention tool. If you go, if I ever go up to the store on Sunday and I'm working on something, without fail, every 3 minutes a car is going to pull up to the speaker box to order. They know we're closed on Sunday, but it's they forget. So and if you ever park your car on Sunday because we're whatever, doing something, it's all these cars immediately just flock in and park because they just see cars oh, they're open today. But no, we haven't really gotten any negative feedback about that. We've gotten our fair share of negative feedback just about that.
What is the biggest complaint you'll get?
Gosh, it's kind of all over the board.
What's the one that annoys you the most? You hear it and you just
I
go,
can't tell you that. I think that when it comes down to speed, that's the one that annoys me the most because there are times, because we are the standard, we have set our own standard. So when people say, man, y'all are moving slow today, and it's yes, we're moving slow for us. But compared to our competitors, we're still faster. And so it's that perspective thing. And so it's not that it annoys me you're crazy, get out of here. It's yeah, you're right, but so we'll just keep picking on Popeyes. If you were sitting in Popeyes drive-thru, you'd still be over there, and you'd be second car in line. So I think it's just that perspective thing. Or when people ask for extra Polynesian sauce and you give them 5, and they're I said extra. How much do you need? So honestly, there aren't many complaints that just kind of roll. But that is, I have accepted that is the role I'm in. Is when you serve 1,800 people a day, people are going to find something to be upset about. So just try to care for them and make it right so they come back tomorrow. Anything else? All right. Let's see. I don't think I have any more nuggets of wisdom. Guess that's my dad joke. Yeah, I mean, I guess the last thing I would say is just like, you know, for me, great service, hospitality, I mean, it kind of all starts with leadership. You know, the more that you can kind of pour into the people that work for you to create that culture of service, the easier it is to serve. And I think the better I serve my team, the better they serve our guests, for sure. So, yeah, that's all I got. I'm no expert. This is truly just my experience. But I do have lots of free Chick-Fil-A cards, enough for everybody. So I will give those out if y'all don't have any more questions. Oh, yep.
You like Polynesian or Chick-fil-A sauce?
So when I answer this question, you're probably going to be upset. I've never tasted either one of those.
Really?
So I literally,
12 years.
yeah. So the only two sauces I eat are barbecue sauce and the sriracha. I like have this weird aversion, like Chick-fil-A sauce, if I'm like it grosses me out. Like the smell of it, the look of it, I just can't do it.
Wow.
Like, now, we give away way more of it than anything else. It's not even close. And Polynesian second. So, everybody else loves those two. The one we never give out is sriracha, and it's like the only one I eat, so basically, I just have as much as I want. Yeah. Anything else?